how to exit an avoidance life and leave them struggling with their own mind. Let me tell you something right now. If you're in a relationship with an avoidant, you are fighting a battle that you cannot win. And you shouldn't even try, because the moment you start chasing someone who is running, you've already lost. But today, we're going to flip the script. We're going to talk about power, your power, and how to take it back so that when you leave, they are the ones left struggling with their own mind, not you. An avoidant personality operates on a deeply ingrained pattern of emotional distance, intermittent reinforcement, and subtle control. They don't do this consciously to hurt you. It's simply their way of protecting themselves. But to you, it feels like a painful, exhausting cycle of highs and lows, of being pulled in close one moment and then pushed away the next. And if you're not careful, you will spend months, maybe even years, trapped in this emotional roller coaster, trying to decode their mixed signals, searching for ways to prove your worth, and desperately hoping that one day they will finally love you the way you deserve. The reality is that an avoidant doesn't fear losing you. They fear losing control over you. As long as you are emotionally invested, waiting for their affection, longing for their validation, they remain in power. It's not about love. It's about the comfort of knowing they have an escape route at all times. They give just enough to keep you hooked, to make you believe that if you just do things right, if you become more patient, less demanding, more understanding, then they will finally be ready to commit. But that day never comes. This dynamic is not accidental. It's a subconscious game they've mastered through years of avoiding true emotional intimacy. And here's where most people get stuck. They believe they can win the game by playing it better. They think if they communicate their needs in just the right way, if they love harder, if they give more, then they will finally break through that emotional wall. But this is a game rigged against you from the start. Because the more you give, the less they feel the need to step up. The more you chase, the faster they run. The more you invest, the more exhausted and depleted you become. It's crucial to understand that the problem was never you. You are not too needy, too emotional, or too much. You were simply looking for a connection with someone who is terrified of connection. And instead of recognizing this and stepping away, you became trapped in a cycle of self-doubt, questioning whether you were the reason they wouldn't open up. But let me tell you this, if someone truly wants to be with you, you won't have to convince them. You won't have to prove your worth. You won't have to settle for crumbs and call it a meal. Once you recognize that you've been playing their game, everything changes. You stop analyzing their behavior, stop overthinking every word and action, stop waiting for them to wake up and realize your value. You see the pattern for what it is, a manipulation of emotional highs and lows designed to keep you hooked. And when you see it, you no longer fall for it. Think about a magician performing an illusion. The trick seems real when you don't understand how it works, but the moment you learn the mechanics behind it, the illusion loses its power. This is exactly what happens when you recognize the avoidance pattern. Once you understand that their cycle of push and pull is not about love, but about control, you stop reacting, you stop playing. And without your participation, the entire illusion crumbles. At this moment, something powerful happens. You begin to detach. You realize that you don't need to prove your worth to someone who can't even recognize their own emotional wounds. You stop making excuses for their behavior. You stop bending over backward to accommodate their fears while neglecting your own needs. You stop waiting for closure. That will never come because true closure comes from within, not from another person. But here's the part that really shifts the dynamic. You no longer feel the need for them to change. You no longer believe that their love or validation will complete you. And when you reach that level of awareness, you hold all the power. Because the one thing an avoidant never expects is for you to wake up, take your energy back, and walk away with certainty. This is why so many avoidants come running back the moment you finally let go. It's not because they've suddenly realized your worth, it's because they've lost control over you. They feel the shift, the absence of your energy, the silence where your efforts used to be. And that's when they struggle, not because they miss you in the way you deserve to be missed, but because they don't know how to exist without the security of knowing you'll always be there. But by the time they realize this, you are already gone because you finally understand the game. And once you understand it, you never play it again. An avoidant thrives on knowing they have the upper hand. Their entire relationship dynamic is built on one thing: control. Control over when they engage, when they withdraw, when they give affection, and when they withhold it. It's not a conscious, calculated effort on their part. It's how they've learned to protect themselves from emotional closeness. But for you, it creates an exhausting cycle of uncertainty, always waiting for the next moment when they'll suddenly pull away. Now, here's the shift that changes everything. Instead of being the one who always reaches out, always tries to fix things, always reassures them, you become the one who withdraws. And let me tell you, this is something they never see coming, because up until this moment, you've been predictable. They know that no matter how distant they become, no matter how many times they push you away, you will always come back. They've trained you to do this through a cycle of intermittent reinforcement, giving just enough love to keep you hopeful, then disappearing the moment you feel safe. But what happens when you change the rules? What happens when you stop chasing, when you stop initiating conversations, when you stop being emotionally available whenever they decide to show up? You disrupt their entire pattern, and suddenly they feel something they never expected: loss of control. This is where the avoidant starts to struggle, because in their mind, you were never supposed to be the one who pulls back. You were supposed to be the constant, the reliable one, the person who always put in the effort to keep the connection alive. They expected you to keep reaching out, keep proving your worth, keep waiting for them to be ready. But now, something has shifted. You are no longer playing the role they assigned you. At first, they might not react. They may assume it's just temporary, that you're giving them space in hopes they'll come around. But as time passes and you remain silent, something unexpected happens. They start thinking about you. They start wondering why you haven't reached out. They start questioning whether they really had as much control over the situation as they thought. And this is where the cracks in their emotional armor begin to show. See, an avoidant doesn't just fear intimacy, they fear abandonment too. They push people away to avoid getting hurt, but deep down they still want to know that those people will keep trying. When that cycle is broken, they are forced to sit with their own emotions, their own insecurities, their own unresolved wounds. And for someone who has spent their entire life avoiding emotional discomfort, this is pure chaos. This is why silence is so powerful. It's not about playing games or manipulating them. It's about reclaiming your own power. It's about recognizing that your worth is not defined by how much effort you put into fixing someone who refuses to be fixed. When you stop being available, they are left alone with their own thoughts. And for an avoidant, that is the most uncomfortable place to be. Now, let's talk about what happens next. The moment they start feeling your absence, they will test you. They might send a casual text, something vague, something that doesn't acknowledge the emotional distance, something that seems innocent but is really a way to check if you're still hooked. Hey, hope you're doing well. I just saw something that reminded me of you. How have you been? It won't be deep, it won't be an apology, and it definitely won't be the emotional breakthrough you might have hoped for. It's a breadcrumb designed to see if you will take the bait, and this is the critical moment where most people fall back into the trap. Because when you've been starved of their attention, even the smallest effort can feel like a breakthrough. But here's the truth. If they truly valued you, they wouldn't need to lose you to realize it. They wouldn't be testing the waters with half-hearted messages. They would be showing up fully present, fully committed. Your job in this moment is simple. Do nothing. Do not engage. Do not feed into their need for reassurance. Do not reward their minimal effort with your full attention. Because the only way an avoidant ever truly feels the impact of their actions is when they face the consequences of them. And that consequence is losing you. When you become the one who withdraws, you are no longer at their mercy. You are no longer waiting for them to decide when and how they will show up for you. You are taking control of your own emotional well-being, refusing to settle for a relationship that drains you. And in doing so, you create a shift that leaves them questioning everything. This is not about revenge. It's not about making them suffer. It's about recognizing that you deserve more than inconsistent love. It's about realizing that the person who values you will never put you in a position where you have to fight for their attention. At the moment you embrace that, you become untouchable. You break free from their cycle. And they are left with nothing but the realization that they pushed away the one person who truly cared. Silence is one of the most powerful tools you have when dealing with an avoidant. It is not passive, it is not weakness, it is a calculated, intentional shift in energy that forces them to confront something they've been running from their entire lives. Their own mind. Up until this point, they have been able to control the relationship dynamic by dictating when they engage and when they withdraw. They have trained you to respond to their pullbacks with pursuit, to their coldness with warmth, to their detachment with effort. But the moment you go silent, the entire foundation of their emotional control begins to shake. Avoidants thrive on control, and part of that control comes from knowing that you will always be there. They don't need constant engagement from you to feel secure. What they need is the knowledge that if they were to reach out, you would respond. That's what keeps them comfortable. It's the invisible string they hold on to, the unspoken reassurance that no matter how much they push you away, you will still be there waiting. But when you go silent, you cut that string. You remove the certainty they've relied on, and suddenly, for the first time, they are forced to sit with the consequences of their own behavior. At first, they might not react. Avoidants are skilled at pretending they don't care. They have spent years building emotional walls so high that even they believe they are untouchable. They might tell themselves that your silence doesn't bother them, that they expected you to back off eventually. But as time passes, something starts to shift. They begin to wonder why you haven't reached out. They start checking their phone more often, scrolling through old messages, replaying past conversations in their head. They start questioning whether they miscalculated your attachment, whether they lost their grip on the situation. And that's when the discomfort sets in, because for an avoidant, silence is not just an absence of noise, it is an absence of control. It is a mirror held up to their deepest fears, reflecting back all the unresolved emotions they have tried so hard to suppress. They are no longer distracted by your efforts to fix things, by your emotional availability, by your willingness to bridge the gap they created. Instead, they are left alone with their own thoughts, their own insecurities, their own feelings of unworthiness that they have spent a lifetime avoiding. Silence forces an avoidant to feel, and feeling is the one thing they have spent their entire lives running from. This is when they begin to struggle, not necessarily because they miss you in the way you deserve to be missed, but because they are suddenly confronted with emotions they don't know how to handle. They might start having intrusive thoughts about you, memories of moments when you were present, when you cared, when you tried. They might begin to recognize in their own limited way that they took your presence for granted. But instead of facing these emotions head on, they will do what they always do, try to suppress them. And yet, silence is relentless. It lingers. It seeps into the cracks of their emotional walls, filling the spaces where your words, your affection, and your effort used to be. It forces them to sit with the reality that for the first time, they don't know where they stand with you. And that uncertainty is something they never expected to feel. At this point, many avoidants will try to reestablish control. They might send a casual message, something small and insignificant, just to test the waters. Hey, hope you're doing okay. Saw something today that reminded me of you. How's life? These messages are not genuine attempts to reconnect. They are bait, a way to see if they still hold power over you. And this is where most people fail, because after days, weeks, maybe even months of silence, even the smallest outreach from the avoidant can feel like a breakthrough. It can feel like proof that they care, that they're thinking about you, that maybe, just maybe, they're finally ready to change. But here's the hard truth. If they truly valued you, they wouldn't need to lose you to realize it. They wouldn't be testing the waters with half-hearted messages. They would be showing up fully ready to do the emotional work required to build something real. Your job in this moment is to do nothing, to let the silence continue, to resist the urge to respond, to engage, to reassure them that you're still there, because the only way an avoidant ever truly feels the impact of their actions is when they are forced to sit with the weight of their own choices. Silence is not a punishment. It is not a mind game. It is a declaration of self-worth. It is a statement that says, I am no longer willing to participate in a relationship where my needs are ignored. I am no longer going to chase someone who refuses to meet me halfway. I am no longer going to pour love into someone who only knows how to take. And in the end, silence does what words never could. It forces them to face themselves, to sit in the space where your energy used to be and realize that they are the ones who pushed it away. And for an avoidant, that realization is the one thing they never saw coming. The moment you take your energy back, everything shifts. Up until now, you've been pouring yourself into a connection that has only drained you. You've been overextending, overanalyzing, and overcompensating for someone who gives the bare minimum. And why? Because you believed that if you just loved them enough, if you just proved your worth, if you just waited a little longer, they would finally step up. But they never did. And they never will, because the entire foundation of their attachment style is built on maintaining distance. An avoidant doesn't respond to love in the way you do. While you see love as connection, as emotional closeness, as mutual effort, they see love as a threat to their independence. The closer you get, the more they feel the need to pull away. The more you give, the less they feel they need to contribute. The cycle is exhausting, and the truth is it has never been about your worth. It has never been about whether you were enough. It has always been about them and their fear of vulnerability. But here's the moment everything changes. When you decide that you're done playing their game, when you decide that instead of waiting for them to choose you, you choose yourself. When you take your energy back, taking your energy back is not about making them miss you. It's not about manipulating them into chasing you. It's about shifting your focus away from them and back onto you. Because the truth is, for far too long, you've made them the center of your world. You've prioritized their needs, their comfort, their avoidance over your own well-being. And that stops now. So what does taking your energy back actually look like? It starts with a mental and emotional shift. Instead of waking up and wondering if they'll text you today, you wake up and ask yourself, what do I need today? Instead of obsessing over their behavior, why they're distant, why they're inconsistent, why they seem to be fine without you. You turn inward and focus on what truly matters, your own healing, your own happiness, your own growth. The biggest mistake people make when trying to detach from an avoidant is believing that silence alone is enough, that if they just stop texting, stop calling, stop reaching out, the avoidant will suddenly realize their worth. But true detachment is not about absence, it's about energy. You can go no contact for weeks, but if your mind is still consumed with thoughts of them, if you're still waiting for them to return, if you're still stalking their social media or hoping for some kind of sign, you haven't truly taken your energy back. You're still giving it away. Reclaiming your energy means cutting off the supply. It means refusing to engage in the mental loops that keep you stuck. It means breaking the addiction to the highs and lows of the relationship. And yes, it is an addiction. The reason leaving an avoidant feels so difficult is that the relationship operates on the same neurological patterns as gambling. Random rewards, unpredictable affection, and just enough validation to keep you hooked. But once you recognize that, you can break free. The first step, redirect your focus. You've spent so much time trying to understand them, trying to fix them, trying to make sense of their behavior. Now, it's time to turn that attention inward. What do you want? What makes you happy? What passions, hobbies, or interests have you neglected because you were too consumed with this relationship? When you stop investing in them, you suddenly have all this energy to pour into yourself. And that's where the real transformation happens. Because here's what most people don't realize. The moment you truly take your energy back, the avoidant feels it. Not because you're punishing them, not because you're playing a game, but because on an energetic level, they sense the shift. They may not be able to articulate it, but they know that something is different. The person who was always there, always available, always waiting for them to change is suddenly gone. And that creates an emptiness they weren't prepared for. Avoidants don't fear losing you. They fear losing control over you. They fear losing the comfort of knowing you're still emotionally invested. When you pull back, when you no longer seek their validation, when you stop reacting to their games, they are left with themselves. And for the first time, they are forced to sit with their own emotional discomfort without you there to absorb it for them. Some will try to re-engage. They'll send a random text, check your social media, or find some excuse to pull you back in. But the difference now, you see through it. You no longer respond with the same eagerness. You no longer mistake their fleeting attention for real change. Because when you take your energy back, you stop needing them to validate your worth. You validate yourself. And in that moment, you become free. Free from the cycle, free from the confusion, free from the emotional exhaustion of chasing someone who was never capable of giving you what you needed. And the best part, you step into a version of yourself that is stronger, wiser, and more powerful than ever before. The moment you stop reacting, everything changes. Up until now, your emotions have been dictated by their actions. When they gave you attention, you felt a rush of validation. When they pulled away, you spiraled into anxiety, overanalyzing every little detail, trying to figure out what you did wrong. They trained you to be responsive, to be the one who always initiates, who always seeks clarity, who always fights for the connection while they remain distant, detached, and unbothered. But that dynamic only works as long as you keep playing your part. The moment you stop reacting, you take away their power. Avoidants thrive on control. Their emotional distance isn't just about their own fears. It's about keeping you in a cycle of uncertainty. They create emotional highs and lows because they know that inconsistency makes you crave their validation even more. When they disappear, they know you'll feel unsettled. And when they come back, they know you'll feel relief, which makes you more likely to accept their minimal effort just to feel close to them again. It's a psychological cycle designed to keep you hooked without ever truly committing. But once you recognize it, you can break it. And breaking it starts with one thing, detachment. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean you become cold or emotionless. It means you stop allowing their behavior to dictate your emotional state. It means you stop feeling the need to chase, to explain, to prove your worth. It means you stop rewarding their inconsistency with your energy. At first, they won't notice. Avoidants assume they have endless time. They believe that no matter how many times they pull away, you will always be there waiting. But as time goes on and your reactions no longer follow their predictable pattern, they begin to feel something unfamiliar, uncertainty. And an avoidant does not handle uncertainty well when it's directed at them. You see, they are used to being the ones in control. They are used to you being the one who reaches out, who tries to fix things, who craves their attention. But when you stop reacting, they suddenly don't know where they stand with you anymore. They start questioning whether they miscalculated your attachment. They start wondering if maybe, just maybe, they pushed too far this time. This is when they will test you. It won't be obvious and it won't be direct. It might be a random text, something meaningless like, hey, or how have you been? It might be them watching your Instagram stories, liking an old post, or sending a message that doesn't require a real response. These are not signs of love. These are signs of curiosity. They want to know if you're still emotionally invested. They want to know if you'll still jump the moment they throw you a breadcrumb. But here's where everything shifts. This time, you don't. You don't take the bait. You don't overanalyze their message, wondering what it means. You don't respond with excitement, thinking this is the moment they finally realize your worth. Because you know better now. You know that if they truly valued you, they wouldn't be testing you with breadcrumbs. They would be showing up fully, ready to put in the effort. And the moment they realize that their usual tactics no longer work, they feel something they've never felt before. Discomfort. Not because they suddenly understand their mistakes, but because they are no longer in control of the dynamic. The safety net they always counted on is gone. And for someone who avoids deep emotional connections, this is an unfamiliar and unsettling feeling. Some avoidants will react by pulling away even more, hoping that their silence will trigger your old patterns of chasing them, but this time you remain unbothered. Others will start making small attempts to reel you back in, trying to see if they can still occupy space in your mind, but you no longer engage in the way you used to. You've reclaimed your emotional energy, and that energy is no longer available for someone who only values it when they feel it slipping away. This is where true freedom begins. You start to see the situation clearly without the haze of emotional attachment clouding your judgment. You realize that their pullbacks were never about you not being enough. Their inability to commit was never about your worth. It was about them, their fears, their insecurities, their emotional limitations. And once you see that, you stop internalizing their behavior. You stop reacting to their emotional unavailability as if it's a reflection of your value, because it never was. You were always enough. You just gave your energy to someone who was never capable of fully receiving it. When you stop reacting, when you stop feeding the cycle, you take back something even more valuable than their attention. You take back yourself. You break free the moment you stop believing in their potential and start seeing their reality. For so long, you've been caught in a cycle of hoping, waiting, and convincing yourself that if you just love them enough, if you just show them what real connection looks like, they will finally change. You've been holding on to the version of them that exists in your mind, the version that shows glimpses of warmth, that occasionally lets you in, that makes you believe there is something deeper underneath all the avoidance. But that version is an illusion. It's not who they are. It's who you wish they could be. And that's the hardest truth to accept. Because when you're emotionally invested, it's painful to acknowledge that the relationship you've been fighting for was never as strong as you believed it to be. It's painful to admit that the connection you felt wasn't mutual in the way you thought, not because they didn't care at all, but because they never cared in the way you needed them to. Avoidants don't operate on the same emotional frequency as you do. While you crave closeness, depth, and consistency, they fear it. The very thing you desire from them is the thing that makes them pull away. They see vulnerability as a risk, not as a bridge to deeper intimacy. So instead of meeting you with the same emotional investment, they give you just enough to keep you hopeful. A moment of connection here, a sweet memory there, an occasional sign that maybe, just maybe, they're capable of more. And every time you get that small dose of validation, you cling to it, believing it's proof that they can change, that if you just hold on long enough, one day they will. But here's the truth. They won't. Not because they don't have the ability to grow, but because growth requires self-awareness, effort, and a willingness to confront their fears. And an avoidant will not do that unless they have a deep internal reason to. That reason will never be you. Not because you're not worth it, but because no external force, no matter how loving, patient, or devoted, can make someone face the parts of themselves they have spent a lifetime avoiding. That work has to come from within them, and most of them will never choose to do it. You break free the moment you accept this. The moment you stop making excuses for their behavior, the moment you stop romanticizing the potential of what could be and start seeing what is. When you do that, everything shifts. Because now, instead of waiting for them to give you what they are incapable of giving, you realize that you've been giving them something far more valuable, your time, your energy, your emotional presence. You have been pouring into someone who only takes. And the moment you stop, the dynamic collapses. Avoidants don't fear losing you. They fear losing access to you. They fear losing the comfort of knowing that no matter how much they push you away, you will always come back. When you finally remove yourself, when you finally refuse to be a participant in the cycle, they are left with something they never expected, the reality of their own emotional limitations. At first, they might not react. They may even act indifferent, pretending that your absence doesn't affect them. But deep down, they feel it. Not because they miss you in the way you deserve to be missed, but because they are no longer receiving the emotional reassurance that your presence once provided. They start to wonder why you stopped trying, why you no longer respond the way you used to. They may even try to re-engage, not out of love, but out of a need to see if they still have control. But the difference now, you no longer respond, not because you're playing a game, but because you've woken up. You see the truth, you see the pattern, and you refuse to participate in something that only drains you. And that's when you truly break free, because now you no longer need them to validate you. You no longer seek closure from someone who was never emotionally available to begin with. You no longer believe that love should be earned through suffering. Instead, you reclaim all the energy you once wasted on them and redirect it toward yourself. And in doing so, you don't just leave them behind, you leave them struggling with the one thing they were always running from, their own mind. The most powerful thing you can do is walk away without a word. Not in anger, not in desperation, not as a way to provoke a reaction, but because you have finally recognized your worth. For so long, you have been trying to get them to see you, to appreciate you, to show up for you in the way that you have shown up for them. You have fought for their attention, their affection, their commitment, believing that if you just held on a little longer, they would finally step up. But the truth is, an avoidant will never change for someone who continues to accept their distance, their inconsistency, their lack of effort. They will only change when they are forced to sit with the consequences of their actions. And the greatest consequence, the absence of the person who once filled the void they refuse to face. Avoidants operate in a way that keeps them emotionally safe. They keep relationships on their terms, ensuring that they remain in control while keeping you uncertain. They withdraw when things get too close and return when they sense you pulling away, keeping you in a cycle of emotional highs and lows. But what happens when that cycle ends? What happens when instead of chasing them, you disappear? What happens when you give them exactly what they claim to want? Distance. At first, they won't react. They will assume you're playing a game, that you're waiting for them to reach out, that you're testing them. They are used to you being there, waiting in the background, ready to accept whatever crumbs of attention they decide to throw your way. But as time goes on and you remain silent, something begins to shift. They start to feel the space that you once occupied. And while an avoidant may not initially register this as loss, they do register it as discomfort. Avoidants are not emotionless. They do feel, but they have spent their entire lives compartmentalizing their emotions, burying them beneath logic, distraction, and avoidance. When you were in their life, whether they admitted it or not, you provided a sense of stability. They knew that no matter how much they pushed you away, you would still be there. That assurance allowed them to feel secure in their own detachment. But when you leave, when you truly remove yourself, emotionally, physically, and mentally, you take away that security. They are left with nothing but themselves. And that is where the struggle begins. For the first time, they have to face what they have been avoiding all along, their own emotional emptiness. They start to notice the silence, the absence of your energy, the lack of validation they once received from knowing you are always there. And while they may try to convince themselves that they are fine without you, a part of them begins to question why they suddenly feel unsettled. This is when they might try to pull you back in, but it won't be a grand declaration of love or a genuine commitment to change. It will be subtle, a random message, a like on an old post, a meaningless attempt to see if you will still respond the way you used to. Because for them, it's not about missing you in the way that you deserve to be missed. It's about regaining control. It's about making sure that they can still occupy space in your mind. But the difference now, you don't respond. Not because you are trying to punish them, but because you have outgrown the need for their validation. You see through their patterns, their emotional unavailability, their inability to give you what you deserve, and instead of feeling hurt by their lack of effort, you feel indifferent because you now understand that the love you were seeking from them was always meant to come from within you. And that is what truly leaves them struggling. Not your anger, not your absence, but your indifference. Avoidants expect you to be emotional, to react, to chase, to prove your worth to them. They are not prepared for your silence. They are not prepared for you to move on without closure, without explanation, without one last attempt to make them see what they lost. They are not prepared for you to become the one thing they never expected, completely free from them. And in the end, that is the greatest power you hold. The power to walk away without looking back. The power to leave them with the one thing they have been running from all along, themselves. And so you stand at a crossroads. You can continue to pour your energy into someone who will never truly meet you where you are, or you can finally take that energy back and invest it where it belongs within yourself. The moment you stop waiting for them to change, the moment you release the illusion of their potential, is the moment you step into your power. You are no longer someone who chases, who overgives, who settles for less than you deserve. You are someone who chooses themselves. Because here's the truth. Love should not be a game of endurance. It should not be something you have to earn by proving your worth. real love, healthy love, meets you with the same energy, the same effort, the same devotion you give. Anything less is not love. It's a lesson in self-worth, a lesson in boundaries, a lesson in recognizing that sometimes the greatest act of love is the love you give to yourself when you finally walk away. And when you do, when you truly exit an avoidance life without anger, without a need for closure, without one last attempt to make them see what they lost, something extraordinary happens. You step into a new chapter, one where you are no longer trapped in a cycle of uncertainty, one where you no longer settle for half-hearted love, one where you finally understand that the person who was meant to love you deeply, consistently, and without fear has always been you. So take your power back, walk away in silence, let them sit with the weight of their own choices, let them struggle with the absence of your presence, and most importantly, step forward into the life, the love, and the self-respect that you have always deserved. Thank you for showing up for yourself today. Thank you for choosing to hear a truth that might be painful, but is necessary. And most of all, thank you for being willing to break the cycle, to rise above the patterns that have kept you stuck, and to step into a future where you are no longer waiting to be loved. You are choosing to love yourself first.